What's going on there?
Hello, we are live.
Hello.
Welcome to GTFO. It's a Friday Facebook session. Welcome, guys. Hannah, this is your first one of 2022, isn't it?
It is. I'm mega excited. I've been looking forward to it all month. It's the highlight of my life.
Or as we say at Grow Traffic, our company motto, don't get too excited.
Don't get too excited.
I thought our company motto was don't be a dick.
Well, there is that as well. That's our staff motto.
That's my life, that's my motto to live my life by. Just don't be a dick.
Just don't be a dick.
I don't manage it very often.
Hannah, what's your name and where'd you come from?
I'm Hannah. I am from Grow Traffic and Shooting the Shit and Traffic Wonk and the Seroptimists
and Grow Skills.
Grow Skills and Target Housing and Yorkshire Adoption Agency and lots of other places.
Wow, amazing. Lots of things. Simon Daly, what's your name? Where'd you come from?
Daly. And I'm me from the land of Daly.
This is also true.
Daly, are you drunk? You look like
he's going to be in a minute.
I've just opened a nice bottle of cider because I don't have a water up here, but I do have a bottle of cider.
Okay, fair enough. Well, it's Friday, isn't it? You know, it's always Friday somewhere. Rachel Weinhold from Grow Traffic, also Seroptimists, M3 Project, a million other things besides.
Bake Up Business Association.
Bake Up Business Association, yes, all of these things.
Rabbit botherer.
Rabbit. Oh, Jake bought me a mug. So we did our Secret Santa this week because Chloe, our lovely Chloe, has now left us. She's gone traveling and then she's going to go catch babies. So we had a little meal to say bye-bye to Chloe and we did our Secret Santa at the same time because we couldn't have our Christmas do in December because COVID. And Jake bought me a mug that says, "I'm the best rabbit mum." Oh. What's your story of the week, Hannah, besides the fact that you stink?
Well, no, that is my story of the week. I'm trying out a new natural deodorant and it's been fine because I've been mostly sat still. But then I went and played netball on Wednesday and it was decidedly not fine. So,
has anybody said anything? Has anyone noticed?
No one's noticed. Well, no one said anything, no. But I've seen very few people, possibly.
Dali, got an interesting story? What happened to you this week?
Well, I think my interesting story, which is Hannah's probably interesting story as well, is that Hannah and I interviewed about not quite 8 people. There were supposed to be 8 people, but we interviewed 8 people. And
we interviewed 4 people.
It felt like about 7. So we interviewed on Monday and we've offered and 2 people have accepted, which is brilliant.
Yeah,
they start on Monday, don't they? So let's crack on with this because I've still got to sort of laptop out yet for someone.
Okay, right. Well, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, Dali. So today we are talking about top 5 tips for mastering voice search. Now, if you tuned into our voice search, so if you tuned into our broadcast, the first one back, week before last, we were talking about the top 5 things that you need to keep your eye on in terms of SEO this year. And voice search is not new. We have been talking about it for years, but this was the one that we mentioned. And the reason for that is that this is the year where it's finally going to take off. There are going to be more people by the end of this year. More searches will be carried out by voice search than are carried out on texting and on laptops and things in the traditional way. So we've got top 5 tips of what you need to do, practically speaking, with your content now that you've got existing on your website and the content that you're creating going forwards. So first of all, somebody explain to me, what is voice search? What are we talking about?
You know,
before we crack on with that, can we just go back to what you just said then? Because I don't think it's quite right. We aren't going to see more voice searches we're not going to see overtake text and other forms of searches, are we? It's just going to increase in the number of searches.
They reckon 60% of searches by the end of 2022 will be voice search.
No, 60% of searchers will carry out voice searches. Slightly different.
Okay, fine. Go on then.
What would you like me to do? Sorry, what would you like me to say?
Oh my god.
Fucking hell, Sally. Right, Hannah, carry on. What were you saying?
Voice search is when you say into your phone or into a device in your home, like an Alexa, what's the weather going to be like today? Or how do I get to Doncaster on the bus? Or something like that. That's voice search. So you're searching using your voice.
Yeah. And why is that going to be different for people than normal searches would be? Ali, do you want to flex your knowledge on this one?
Why is it going to be different? Because it's a different way of using keywords, or the way we use language. So Google's going to have to get much better understanding the way that we talk, and how that relates to the way that content is brought up. It also means that there's generally only one result in voice search instead of multiple results as you get in the normal SERPs. There's a number of different things. It's more applicable probably to local search, if you think about it that way, because people often use voice search before they trigger a map search, perhaps in the car when they're searching for things, or they're looking for directions. A number of different ways.
Well, I think you're less likely to get a click through, or you're not going to get a click through. So whereas on if you type something into the Google machine, then you get a result and you get your answer. But if you want more depth, then you would obviously click through, which takes people onto your website. This isn't that. You're not going to get that click through.
It's just asking the internet for answers, isn't it, essentially? And we'll come on to asking and answering the questions, because that's been our mantra for years. So that bit doesn't change. But I do think it's really important to consider that fact that, search engines, for the history of search engines, so since the 90s, have worked on and have been based on the fact that we type in queries, and they, read written content in order to understand how humans communicate with each other. We typed our queries. We were wanting our answers to come at us in text format. And that fundamental change from written questions to spoken questions is big. And that, yes, the intent changes because somebody's going to be in a slightly different position. When you sit down at your laptop to start researching, you're naturally going to ask different questions than if you're just screaming them into your Alexa device. But also, we're going to talk much more colloquially, aren't we? So rather than saying, what will the weather be like tomorrow, we are going to say, am I going to need an umbrella if I go out in the next hour? We haven't mentioned the weather. We haven't said where we are, but we expect that our search devices will understand those connotations and the inferences from what we're saying. And 9 times out of 10 nowadays they do. But that's a fundamental shift in how search functions and what we're expecting from our search engines.
Yeah, do you guys use voice search? Do you use it?
Well, so Leon has an Alexa device, and I don't use voice search on my phone, but Leon will ask questions, and occasionally will ask questions of the Alexa. But it tends to be much more. It's less like, I wouldn't sit down if I wanted to buy a new car. I wouldn't start that journey with Alexa and say, Alexa, what are the best cars for such and such thing, or what's a good family car? I would tend to just say things like, when's my package coming? Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? It's a very different style of searching, isn't it?
I think as well, you use it. What sort of things do you say to it? Why am I like this? And why is she crying?
How did I end up with this amount of genius, this level of genius? How can the world relate better to me?
No, but really, what do you search for?
No, so I often use it in the car. So I often, if I'm driving, I'll often ask Google for locations and things like that. My new car has a media center, so your phone becomes like the screen of the car, if you like. So it all kind of hooks in together, and
it's a very different style of using a search engine, though, isn't it? And it is very different to how we've used search engines in the past. In the past, they've been much more of a, like a library almost of how do we access this information. And now we just expect them to have the answer to every question we could ever think of.
I mean, I don't have an Alexa or anything like that, and I won't do, because I feel like it's like the last bastion of privacy. Although obviously my phone is listening to me all the time. But I never used it on my phone except to like do a task, like set a timer or, you know, set a reminder. And that's mainly because I can't find the reminder function on my phone. So like, I think a lot of these devices were set up for the Internet of Things. So, you know, you can turn on your light switches or you can remind like, do I need milk kind of things. Rather than it being particularly a search function. You know, I think it's more there to like aid the lives. So right, like you were saying, where you wouldn't like sit down and look at cars, like you wouldn't, but you would like ask, you know, like what's the calories in a banana?
It's much more of a Wi-Fi, bake up Wi-Fi issues. It's much more there to be an aid to life, isn't it? The idea is that we will say, you know, oh, don't put milk on my shopping list, and our device will then add the milk to the shopping list, and when we've got enough things, order it automatically. And it's much more around that seamless kind of lifestyle assistant as much as a search engine, isn't it?
And I do think that for years we've been predicting the rise of voice search, and it's not like, I do feel like we have this conversation every year and it's never really come into total fruition, because there will always be those, you know, the need to do your own research and to physically Google it. So I think that does need to be taken into consideration.
Google said that themselves.
Yeah, I think like all these tips, like
Google
like
said that.
Have we got a delay? I think like all these tips you shouldn't be should be taken with that in mind. Don't just think like I'm going to optimize my entire site now for voice search. And Google have said that themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. We are still there's that fundamental visual element is missing from Alexa devices and what have you. And you know, you can see by the rise of TikTok and the success of YouTube and even Pinterest and things, we are still very visual, and there are certain things that we want to see pictures of things, and we want to see pretty pictures of things, and Alexas don't do that. They're not going to give us that access to a website or photos or anything. So anyway, let's crack on. Time is marching on. So top 5 tips. How are you as a content creator going to ensure you have thought about and optimized for voice search when you are creating your content, updating your website, all the rest of those things? Tip number 1, research your keywords and your customers. So it's not just keywords. Why is it not just keywords? Why does your customers and the rest of it matter?
Because the actual customer is so crucial in this instance, because it's how they speak, how they're going to find your services, rather than just kind of broad terms that they're going to use to find them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what's the difference in that? What difference does it make, Dally?
I think we should generally talk about understanding customers rather than keywords in many instances, anyway, because we've kind of moved beyond just thinking about small 1 or 2 word phrases. But all your customers are going to talk in different ways. They're going to use different kinds of words, often words that you wouldn't think apply to your industry or your product or your service, and it's about picking up on those. And the example that I always give is I worked with a company that sold IVAs, which was like a debt management product, and all the consumers were typing in bankruptcy and bankrupt and keywords surrounding that, because that's what they were scared would happen. Whereas the company thought that they would go out there and target the word IVA.
Yeah, exactly. Like you need to look at sometimes at that kind of at the buyer journey and what brings customers to the very top of your kind of funnel when they're just in the awareness phase.
Well, and also it's that fundamental thing, isn't it, of what do your customers call it? And when we're training, I always use the example of, we call it SEO copywriting. If we're writing a blog for a client, we are doing SEO copywriting. But our clients don't call it that. They call it blogging or blog writing, or they're going to search for, I need someone to write my blog, so I need a blog writer. So it's that basic thing of what are people going to be looking for if they are looking for your product and service? And even down to things like when we say research your customers, what age group are they? Because if your products or services are targeted at people in their 20s, they are going to talk in a very different manner to people who are in their 60s and 70s, perhaps. If you are mainly targeting people in the north of England, you're going to use a different colloquialisms, different accents, all the rest of it to people who are down south. So it's thinking about who are those customers? How are they going to ask for your products or services, or ask questions that relate to your products and services? And it's all that is about, thinking about your buyer journey, but also put yourselves in your customers' shoes and don't think about it from your own point of view. Yeah. Okay. So 5 top tips for using voice search. Number 1, think about keywords and customers. Customers more than keywords. Number 2, we've just touched on this, but ask and answer questions. We say this over and over again when we're doing better blogging. I must say, ask and answer questions about 50 times. But why? Why do we need to ask and answer questions?
Because that's how it works. People ask questions in search engines, so you have to answer questions to get into the search engines, essentially.
Yeah. And it's about asking the right kinds of questions as well, asking those open questions, using words like how, what, why, when, where, which, in constructing those questions.
Yeah, and I think, this sounds obvious, doesn't it? Ask and answer the questions, but you're absolutely right that asking the questions, how are your customers going to ask the questions, is the important bit, but also the answering bit is really important here, because what we used to do, if we were writing a blog, for example, we might ask a question as a heading, but then we might ramble on for a bit and give a bit of background and then answer the question at the end of the paragraph. Now we need to just give the search engines access to that question and answer. So ask your question, whether that's your heading or your subheading, your H1 or your H2, or a frequently asked questions page. They're a really good way of doing this, getting those questions in there. But ask your question and immediately answer it. Short, succinct, 1-sentence answer.
This is why you're often seeing on people's websites, you go into an article and there's a TLDR section, too long, didn't read or don't read section at the top of it.
Yeah, and it asks and answers the questions. Yeah, it's really good. And why frequently asked questions, Hannah? Why are they better than some other formats?
Because you can ask and answer lots of questions on one page, and that's it.
It's about succinctly answering that question in a paragraph, isn't it? Getting it in the right amount of kind of text and well, characters. Do you know what? That's an interesting one. So when you think about things like the knowledge box in normal search, in it's all about the specific number of characters. I bet on voice search, and I don't know this, I bet it's the length of time that it takes to read that response out. Must have an element to do with that.
It could well be, but I mean, think about how, I know, Hannah, you said you don't have an Alexa, but when we are using the Alexa, you ask her a question and the answer is very short. It is literally 1 sentence, but it's a short sentence. If she can get away with giving you 1 or 2 words, she will do. So I think that succinctness is a key point. You can waffle on after, if once you've asked and answered the question, you can then go off and do your explanation and why is it like that and blah, blah, blah. That bit's not going to get read out by Alexa, but just make sure you're asking an answer. And this isn't just for blogs, this is across your website. So I do think it's really important, if you are starting to think about voice search as part of your strategy, don't just do it from your blogs going forward. Go back, look at your older blogs, review them if you can, look at some of the other content on your website. If you've got a homepage, for example, can you turn that into this question and answer format so that it's all pulling in the same direction? Okay, so top 5 tips. Number 1, research your keywords and your customers. Number 2, ask and answer questions all the time. Number 3, write colloquially and write conversationally. Why does this matter?
Well, Russell has just made a really good point. Hi, Russell. Is voice search perceived as more personal rather than typing? And this kind of plays into it because, yes, because people, you talk differently to how you write, obviously. Everybody does all the time. And so in that sense, the language that you need to use when you are writing your content for voice search does need to be more conversational. It needs to be less formal and therefore more personal. So because that's how people will speak. So in order for it to get picked up and understood, it needs to be, conversational.
Mm-hmm. And it's back to that thing, isn't it? I always use the weather just because it's an easy example, but once upon a time, if we were writing a blog post about weather next month, we might say there will be a lot of rainfall, quite formal. Now we might say, don't forget you're going to need your brolly when you leave home. Brolly, not umbrella. Use that language that your customers are going to be speaking in. Again, we're back to what age are they? Where do they live? What socioeconomic backgrounds roughly do they come from? Once you've got that picture in your head of who your customers are, you can imagine how they're going to speak, and you need to then mirror that and speak to them in that same language. Dali?
Yeah, the algorithm that we're talking about is called Lambda. So it's kind of a new bit of machine learning AI that Google introduced, and it's all about understanding the responses to questions that may not seem sensible in the context of the question that's being asked, but is a sensible response in just a general conversation that people are having. So,
like what?
The point being that when we have conversations, we start in one place and we might end up in somewhere completely different. Now, a machine thinking about it thinks the start and it takes us right to the end, and things like I'm trying to give an example offhand. I can't really think.
So I was reading an example.
How you meander through that.
Yeah, well, so one of the examples I was looking at as well. So there's a pub in Preston called the Tickled Trout. Funnily enough, there was this was the example that was used in the blog post. Not that pub, but there was another pub, and this guy had said, something along the lines of, "How do I get to, or what time does the Tickled Trout open?" Oh, that was it. How do I get to the Tickled Trout? That's what he'd asked, and what he'd got, he compared the search results from the Alexa and the search results from the internet, and a lot of it was, how do I tickle a trout, a fish? And they thought it was a fishing thing. So it's about, you're right, Dali, what we say might seem completely nonsensical to an algorithm, but we're still expecting them to understand what we're talking about, aren't we?
Is it also like how, like, if you look in, I always find it fascinating that if I'm watching a movie, I'm one of these that just spends my whole life like Googling the movie and the actors and the trivia while I'm watching it. Yeah. It's essentially what I did to you when we were children, but now I do it to Google.
Yes.
Who's that? But Google always anticipates like my next few questions. So say I Google like Grease, the musical, Grease, then it'll be like Olivia Newton-John's solo career, lyrics to Let's Get Physical. What else is and it kind of like understands where my train of thought is going to go. Is that kind of it?
It's that's been around for a long time. It's the Lambda model
what you think about like the conversation meanders.
It's that open-ended nature of a conversation where one thing can lead to another, and you might come back to the thing that you started off with, or you might go on a completely different tangent, but you still have it in the same conversation. It's that kind of thing. So it's a bit further. It's more advanced than that. It's that kind of concept, but a bit further.
Yeah.
And that's what we need for voice search now.
Yeah. So don't just think logically, and again, think about conversations, think about how people talk. It's a different style of communication. So top 5 tips: research your keywords and your customers. Number 2, ask and answer questions all the time, everywhere. Blog posts, FAQ pages, main pages of your website. Number 3, write colloquially and conversationally. Number 4, read it aloud to yourself. Why is this important?
Well, before we get onto that, Russell has said, can my business model be optimized by you for voice search? Yeah, but it's more optimizing the content on your website for voice search. So it's making sure it's not so much about your business, it's making sure that your content on the website matches what people are searching for. Sorry, what was the question? Read it aloud. Well, yeah, so
read it aloud.
Read it aloud to make sure that you have actually written it in a way that makes sense when it's written out loud. When it's read out loud.
Yeah, because we as kind of marketers and SEOs that have been doing this for a long time, you often find that when you read the content, you have repetitive chunks in it where you've put the keyword in, and it doesn't sound natural sometimes when you read it out loud. It's doing the right thing for the search engines often, but you read it aloud, make sure it makes sense, make sure it sounds like it's got a bit of personality to it. It's not just a flat piece of content that sounds like it's been AI generated.
That's really important. And I think, we all of us use, copywriting is a skill that we use on a daily basis. But a lot of people who are creating content for their websites, they're not naturally copywriters, and they will be writing, in a certain style. And sometimes it's just that basic thing of, okay, read out the question, read out the answer. Does that sound like something Alexa would say? If it doesn't, go back, make it shorter, make sure you've answered the question, all the rest of it. And it's just that final check, isn't it? It's going to be read aloud by somebody, so you just read it aloud and just make sure it makes sense before you move on.
You could always you could dictate it instead. If you if writing is not your forte, this is a good time when you might use a dictaphone.
Yes, go on, Hannah, tell us your dictaphone story. Go on.
I just can't say the words. So I was supporting a student in a class once, and he had additional needs, and we were talking about ways that he can make it a lot easier to understand what his lecturer is saying, and then go back to it afterwards. And I said to him, have you ever used the dictaphone? And he goes, no, I just use my finger like everyone else.
Dear me.
And that was when I realised I had to leave teaching.
Yes. But, on that front, if a lot of people, one of the biggest things that people say to us as to why they don't want to blog is they say, I hate it. I haven't got time. I hate writing. I'm not very good at it. I can't spell. And not everybody is good at writing. That's fine. But there is a lot of kit out there now that will enable you. So you could record a video like this and then get it transcribed. You can use your dictaphone. There are lots of different ways of creating content that has this question and answer format that's not necessarily sit down and write a 1,000-word article. So yeah, use all the resources. Okay, so top 5 tips: research your keywords and your customers. Number 2, ask and answer questions over and over and over again. Number 3, write colloquially and conversationally. And number 4, read it aloud to yourself just to make sure it makes sense and sounds logical. Number 5, don't just rely on Google. Why?
Shock, horror. You mean there's something other than Google?
There are other search engines.
What?
I think I'm more amazed that this question 5 isn't research, do it all over again and reconsider.
Yes, review, amend, keep going back. Yeah, we've got a different number 5. Way.
Holy moly.
Yeah, no, I know it's hard to believe, but it is true. Other people use, is it called Bing? I think it's called Bing. Bing, yeah.
Bing,
like
Bing, yeah. Bing, it's a rabbit. Bing rabbit.
Bing rabbit, he needs his bottom smacked.
Beidou.
There was a Beidou. Yeah, well, Beidou's Chinese, isn't it? So, and then there's DuckDuckGo, which I'm pretty sure pay people to use them. But yeah, no, Alexa uses Bing. So don't just optimize your content for Google, because not every voice search home device. What is the right term for that? Anyway, not every one of it uses.
Are they called Google personal assistants?
They are. I think they're called personal assistants. Yeah, or home. Google calls theirs the Home Assist, doesn't it? But yeah, they are assistants. And this is what I mean. You can see by the way that they've named them. This is where they're going. We're supposed to have one of these devices that will literally do. They'll turn the lights on. They'll turn the cooker on. They'll do everything. Order our groceries. Switch money in our bank accounts. Everything that we need to do will be done by this one central device. But, yeah.
Well, did you see Elon Musk's announcement over the last few days?
No, I hate Elon Musk. He's one of his
other companies. He has they've got like implanted chips that they're putting into animals' heads, And it's really clever. They can get animals to like play games on computers, but they're really developing it at the moment to help people with like quadriplegics and tetraplegics to start to walk and move again. So it's that's interesting. But the same technology could be used to transfer
make an
memories
army
into the cloud
of children.
Yes. Okay. We're getting into Skynet territory.
But we are getting into Skynet territory. Watching and listening all the time.
They are all the time, all the time. But yes, I mean, Google is not the biggest search engine. Google has had for a very long time market dominance, and it is the biggest search engine by a country mile. But most Alexas go through Bing, so you cannot neglect it anymore. You can't ignore it. And what that means is where you would, upload your website, go to Google, get it, Google Search Console, get it indexed, all the rest of it. Make sure you're showing up in the search results. You need to do the same thing for Bing. You need to go and get your Bing Places for Business card optimized, claim it, make sure all the information's up to date, make sure your website is as visible in Bing as it is in Google. Just make sure you're thinking about all these different things, because that's where if voice search is one of your key pillar of your strategy, Bing is going to be where it's happening rather than on Google.
Yeah, the difference between the two things really is that Google looks contextually at keywords, whereas Bing looks more at precise keywords.
Yeah,
Russell's that's a really good question. Does voice search give different results than typing?
No.
Well, yes and no.
Yes and no. It depends.
You get the same. Yeah, you get the same results. But it depends. Yeah. But if you were to type a query into Google, what you're going to get is you're going to get all of those rich search results. So you're going to get your maps listing, and you're going to get some ads, and you're going to get all the different options of the websites that are ranking one by one. You can look at photos, you can look at shopping, all of the rest of it. With Alexa, you're just getting one answer, and as Dali said, they are going to pick what they think is the correct answer and read out that one sentence to you. So,
and also you would get a different result on Alexa as you would to Google, because, like we say, Alexa uses Bing, but like Apple have a home thing, don't they? As well, they use Google, and obviously the Google one uses Google. So,
but the other thing to, sorry, go on.
No, go on.
No, I was just going to say the other thing to bear in mind is that when you're using a voice assistant, you're going to use different kind of language, like we've talked about before. So you are actually putting in probably a different search than you would do in the normal results.
Can't hear you, Rachel. But like, she's just don't want to.
Thank God for that. How did that? Keep her quiet. She gone. She's completely gone. Good.
I just can't hear her. But yeah,
right,
search for search, word for word, using the same search engine. Yeah, you'd get the same search.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Come on, Rara, say something. Nope, still can't hear you.
We just can't hear it. So
this happened to Rachel the other day, actually.
Yeah, this is going to be nice now. One of us might be able to actually be heard and get a word in edgeways.
Well, obviously won't be you because I'm still talking.
Oh shit, she's back.
Let's just mute her out of the live feed.
No, don't mute me out. No, stop it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, right, good. There we go. Right. In that case,
you were looking forward to being able to speak in full sentences then and get a word in edgeways.
Well, stop it. Not allowed. Okay, top 5 tips for voice search. Number 1, research your keywords and your customers. Number 2, ask and answer questions, as many as you can, different ways, different questions, different points of the buyer journey. Number 3, write colloquially and conversationally. Number 4, read it aloud before you publish it, just to check it makes sense. And number 5, don't just rely on Google. Think about those other search engines and all the rest of it. Hannah Weinhold, final word.
Don't go nuts on it, because yes, it's there, but like, don't do your entire site for voice search, because people are still gonna read and type in, and don't lose sight of the overall kind of goal of your website.
Mm-hmm. Simon Daly, final word.
Yeah, I agree with Hannah. It's a fraction of the overall search volumes out there, and people will still use the normal search for more complicated queries.
And again, they're not going through to your website. They're getting an answer. If that answer is, for example, if it was Russell's company, get me the phone number of the nearest cleaning firm, then yeah, you've got it. But if it's something like which detergent is best for cleaning my oven, they're not going to get through to your website off the back of that search query. So there's limited value. It's useful, it helps, but it's not going to be a panacea strategy. So there we go.
I'm gonna try voice search, and I'm going to ask it who does the best lamb crepes in Burnley.
It better say quick crepes.
It better say Russell.
Right. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching on the Facebook Live and for commenting. If you are watching back on Facebook Live, do please still leave us a comment if you have a question, because we will see it and we will answer you. If you are watching on YouTube, like and subscribe below. And if you're listening on podcast, please rate and review us, because it genuinely helps. That is it. We will be back next week. We are doing podcast only episode next week, but we're doing a deep dive into a voice search strategy. So we'll give you an example of when it's worked really well. That's it. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Goodbye. Bye.